Do wide receivers make the quarterback better, or the other way around? Can you adjust QB rating based on how high or low ranked the wide receivers they throw to are? It's an interesting question. Go ahead. You have the green visor on. The numbers are already brewing in your head. Lay them on us there, Cindy. Synthesize it.
So the answer is yes and no. It's a little chicken and a little egg, and you also have to factor in the run game. So the way I went about trying to answer this question was I created a model with the configurations of the offense. So number of wide receivers, number of tight ends, number of running backs in. Third down, I really focused on third down, red zone production, obviously passing more than running downs. For quarterbacks, I looked at target distance. I looked down completion percentage relative to nearest defender. I factored in the percent of total yards coming from yards after the catch. And the one thing that I really wanted to point out, so if you look at the percentage of a quarterback's yards that come from yards after the catch versus air yards, it's 44% is the average for last year. And that's right on par, 42, 43, somewhere at 44%. That's normal. So the lowest, the person with the fewest,
44% of all yards
so if you're
gained on successful passes are after the catch. I'm surprised by that.
Yep, that's the average.
I'm trying to think if that makes sense in my brain,
so
but okay.
It will when you do this. 53%, Alex Smith. So he's throwing shorter passes, and they go, makes sense, right? Okay, and then 33.4%, Jameis Winston. That one kind of surprised me a little bit. So he benefited the least from yards after contact.
That does make sense. Why that feels right. Seems like he's, given Mike Evans some jump balls. It doesn't seem like it's going to go down either. With
jump balls don't necessarily mean yards after the catch, right? Because if you're jumping up, then it gives the defender a time.
Precisely. Yeah, that's why that makes sense. So if he's throwing the ball downfield to Mike Evans, who has to
that
jump
means more of it, right?
Right. And Deshaun Jackson likely is going to be the same thing, right? I mean, he's not going to contribute to yards after catch.
Right. I was surprised that the number was so low.
Yeah, that's
because
crazy.
In years past, the lowest number has been something like 35, 36%. This is almost 3% lower than that. That's bananas. So for wide receivers, I looked at yards after the catch, so contact and catch were both factored in. Hip direction. I used machine learning to draw a line on their hips to see which direction they're facing. So if you're a jump ball receiver and you're a possession receiver and your hips are facing backwards, you have to turn around, right? That takes a lot longer. You can get tackled.
This is more advanced analysis than I usually do.
Nearest defender number, and then I looked at their route diversity to try to see what their average depth of target was, and then their big catch rate. So when you think big catch, you think the Super Bowl, you think Julio Jones, and then you think Julian Edelman, right? So those are the two, crazy catches that we're unlikely to catch, right? So you're trying to see, is it the quarterback that makes the wide receiver better or vice versa? And the answer is they both influence each other. But the importance of the run game can't be diminished at all. So I looked at configurations faced, like how many times they saw 8 in the box, defenses against them, that is, and then when they passed, where they were able to pass on these downs because you get a much more advantageous passing situation. I looked at the quality of the run game in terms of stuffs and yards after contact, and then I looked at the running back in the passing game. So without this, you see Carson Palmer looks a lot different. If you look at David Johnson, his impact to Carson Palmer's numbers, then it really relates more to wins. So you'll see, you didn't see the Cardinals didn't have as great of a year this year as they did last year, or 2016, 2015, a much better year for them. They had a little bit more in the passing game, but their run game was equal, so it gave them better chances.
Who are the top 3 or 4 guys who can play both ways? If it is, keep it under control, 10 yards and under, 15 yards and under, but also when the situation calls for it, I can go upstairs. Or who are the most balanced QBs?
I would call them the quarterbacks who make their receivers better. So those are the number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks who make their receivers better. Aaron Rodgers, number 1, and Drew Brees, number 2.
Wow, I'm surprised by that, huh?
Yep, and
only because Aaron Rodgers you don't associate with that. So is he by any measure outside of playoff victories? Is he the best quarterback as far as making the receivers at least around him better? Or does Tom Brady still hold that title?
When I talk about making your receivers better, part of the thing that I look at here is you get an advantage if you don't have a running game that really helps you out or a consistent running game that helps you out. And the Patriots have managed to have that consistent run presence. And it's not one person. Obviously, it's a running back by committee situation. So it makes it a little bit different. So it's harder to see the actual impact of Tom Brady versus because the way I measured it here was of this balance, who are the most imbalanced but get the wins. right? And the Patriots aren't as imbalanced as the Packers or as the Saints were. So the imbalance leads the quarterback's relationship with the wide receiver to be more representative of.
Last thing, what is there a name in that top 5 or 6 that would surprise me?
Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins?
Kirk Cousins. Yeah. He 70 21 plus attempts. That's the second most. A 123.2 rating on them, which is like second best or third best. And 40% of his passing yards are yards after the catch, which it's low, right? Like, so anyone who's like, Steelers, like everyone who has these balanced offenses, Matt Ryan was the most balanced quarterback all last season, and he performed the best too. So on all 3 metrics, he was the highest, higher than Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers by just like a teeny little margin. But both of those 2 teams have this amazing balance that affords them more wins. So when it comes to someone like Kirk Cousins
has the
no
big
running.
whip that he doesn't get a credit for, but he can sling it.
He can slang it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was actually a little surprised with Cam Newton, 66 21 plus attempts, but only a 27.3 completion percentage. That's no bueno, right? So that's pretty bad. If you adjust that completion percentage for times when the receiver, so when a target's really far away and the receiver had no chance. So I draw a 3-foot halo around the receiver in the machine learning, and just to see how many times the ball's there. It's actually less Cam and more the receivers last season. So Cam's receivers let him down a little bit last season on those long passes.